Hey everyone, and welcome to Stitching Tales, a podcast about all things sewing and what it's really like to run a sewing business. I am Johanna Lundström of The Last Stitch.
And I am Malena Hjerpe of Hazelhen Patterns. And today we are going to talk about a favorite topic of mine, sewing on a budget.
Whoa! I need to learn a few things, yes. Not my strength.
I do have a little bit of experience of this. I love saving money. I'm not going to be shy about that. And I have also worked in the fast fashion industry. And we are always on a tight budget there. We are always trying to in the product developing process, how can we save money there? So it's been I've been there. let's just say that I've been there. Like how to make this project sample as good as possible, but still within a tight budget margin.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I assume a lot of those lessons that you learn can be applied to us home sewers as well, because technically the process is the same. It's just that it's like more effective and streamlined. But I guess you have to do the same things regardless.
Yeah. And to be honest, when we built our house a couple of years ago, I had this mindset so top of mind all the time, like how to think, so it's I feel like you can apply this way of thinking on all areas in your life, to be honest.
This episode is going to make you rich, so stay tuned.
Well, I wouldn't say rich, but less spending maybe.
Less spending, yeah. So you will have more money left after you listen to this episode. It's a worthwhile investment of your time.
Fingers crossed. Or you're going to get too inspired and start even more projects.
Every corner is going to be cut.
Yeah, it is going to be. Yeah. So let's see. Well, first of all, first point that I have is choosing the right project. Choosing the right style for what you are gonna make, and really have that in mind, because some styles are gonna be some garments are gonna be more costly compared to others. For example, this is very obvious, but like a maxi dress, maxi skirt, it has a lot of fabric in it, so obviously it is gonna cost more. So that's you need to obviously take a decision yourself, like, do you want that or do you want to save a little bit on that? Or for example, a bias cut dress or a bias cut skirt, that is going to have a huge fabric consumption as well, because you can't place the pattern pieces very close together, so that is also going to be a lot more fabric used. And also, if you have a printed fabric, do you want to have the prints or stripes matching in the side, or checks or whatever, or are you okay with them being a little bit off? Because then you can place the pattern pieces a little bit more flexible and closer together. And if you want to have pattern stripes matching, then you need to place them maybe a little bit more bigger space and then bigger fabric consumptions. So those are like my first very obvious points, but still you need to have that in mind, like what is the garment you actually want to make. Some are going to be more costly compared to others.
Yeah, and that's also a sustainability issue as well. If you're able to figure out ways of maybe compromising a little bit with the alignment, you will also have less fabric scraps, which means less waste. So that's also a component of that as well, that if you are very particular about those things with matching, you will obviously probably end up with more fabric that you can't really use in the project because of the matching issue. So I think that's also a good aspect when we talk about this topic.
Yeah, and I think wasn't it in the early 50s, Dior, the new look, wasn't that very controversial because of the amount of fabric that was used in that skirt? In that time when the economy was you couldn't like indulge in a lot of things. So having a skirt with that much fabric in it was it wasn't like welcomed in that sense, because it is going to cost more the more fabric you have. But yeah, the time and fashion, it's it changes.
It changes. And one thing that I find interesting, this is a side note, but now we are sewists, obviously, so we know that the fact that if you want to do like a wide circle skirt, it's going to be more expensive than we're going to do like a narrow pencil skirt. But I will say that I'm constantly surprised by how many people in my social circle, so to speak, I won't name names, but who's like, why is this super wide skirt or this very draped or lots of fabrics that cost like more than a very simple skirt? So to them, everything is just a skirt, it's just a dress, regardless if the fabric is printed or plain. So I find that kind of fascinating that what we know so well, it doesn't really translate outside, the tiny world of either being a sewist or working in the fashion business. Have you noticed that too, that people are a little bit like, why is that more expensive than?
Well, most people I hang out with are usually in this industry, so we are well aware of it.
Yeah.
But I can understand if you haven't thought about it. Sure, you would be like, why is the reason of this? But also, even for us in the industry, it's kind of funny sometimes how some things are, not expected. When I lived in Shanghai, we went to a fabric market, for example, where you can sew up garments. And then a sleeveless top was actually more pricey compared to a same top, but with sleeves. And I was like, but how is that possible? Because now you have more fabric. But then the reasoning was but it's so much easier to do the hemming on a sleeve compared to do it on the armhole if it's going to be sleeveless. So it's going to be less time for the tailor than to sew it. So I was like, I wouldn't have thought that, but makes total sense, because it's always, of course, a balance of, well, also time is money. So how is that relation, like how costly in time will also the project be? And here, of course, as a home sewist, maybe that's something that do you want to be a speedy sewist and just get it done, or can you actually take the time and do these more complicated sewing steps? And that's fine, because it is our hobby. We don't need to sew it we don't have that time crutch, so to say, like time deadline that we need to manage in a certain amount of time or something. But something that we also, when we do in the fashion industry, that we think a lot about, speaking of fabric consumption, is how sometimes we can save quite a lot of money with adding a seam, which of course is an extra sewing step, but this can help you place the pattern pieces on the fabric so much closer together, so you can actually be you can save the amount of fabric that you use per garment, and this is something you can do at home as well on a pattern that you have. Adding a seam, just remember to add seam allowance to that cut. It's super easy. You can just basically on the pattern draw a line, cut, add the seam allowance, and then sew it together. So then you can do a little bit also. If you have a lot of fabric scraps, this is a great scrap busting project. If you have a pattern, add a couple of seam lines here and there, and then mix and match with the fabric scraps. So that could also be very, very helpful. And for example, if you have, you said that like a full skirt, full circular skirt, that is, obviously it's going to be a lot of fabric, but if you add a couple of cuts there, so you have like panels instead, then maybe you can, depending on the fabric as well, you can maybe even flip the fabric pieces, and you can you can place them a lot closer together, so that could be really helpful. Just keep in mind the grain line then, that maybe you want to change the grain line so all of the panels are straight then instead. So you can play around a lot with this, adding cuts and changing the amount of fabric that is used.
That's a really good idea. And I haven't really thought about that, because there's something alluring saying, sewing a wide or like a half circle skirt and just putting it on, but it takes so much fabric, it's insane. That makes a lot of sense. And I wonder, because I've seen sometimes when we talk about ready-to-wear here on the back, on coats, like winter coats, there's a back seam, and I understand that it can be used for shaping, but I also seen like really clear oversized coats having a seam in the back, and I honestly don't feel like it's doing much for the shaping of the garment, because it's not that kind of style. So I have thought about it. I wonder if they just did it because to save fabric.
Probably it, because you don't want to add a seam in the front because that's going to be so visible. But in the center back, it's like, because otherwise the back piece is going to be huge, and maybe it's not going to. You're not going to be able to place it as easily on the fabric. So adding a center back seam most of the time is actually a cost efficiency thing. Of course, if you also have a vent or slit or something in the back, then you need it, and you can have a little bit of shape in it. It's usually to save money, to be able to have it more efficient placed on the fabric.
Oh, that's so interesting and fascinating to hear. But also, it adds interest, I think, to garments sometimes. We shouldn't underutilize the seams, because I feel like it adds a little bit. Otherwise, some garments can look a little bit plain. And when you have seams, especially in the back, or even a skirt with the panels, while it is viewable all the time, it I feel to me it draws the eye, and it gives the garment a bit more of a personality, I would say, in a way. I mean, it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I've actually thought about that seams make something happen. If you just look at a plain slate of surface, it can look a little bit bland sometimes. So, I'm all for adding seams, but I hadn't really thought about it that way, and so that's really such a great tip. And something that we can, of course, adapt easily, because we have the time,
Yeah, exactly.
The budget thing is usually, usually the biggest investment is the fabric when we're sewing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just be a little bit careful with where those cuts are placed. For example, if you place on the sleeve, if you place it in the middle, like where your elbow is, obviously depending what kind of style it is, how tight it is, but usually, for example, on stretchy fabrics, the seam might add a little bit of tension. So if you have it in a place like your elbow or straight at your front knee, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable when you bend your knee or your elbow. So just be a little bit mindful there, like where you place it. Maybe if you have it in the knee in the back, it might, perhaps doesn't feel that much when you wear it, but if you have it in the front, then you might start to feel it. So maybe just below knee, above knee. So just be a little bit careful how and where you place it. But adding, especially on these big pattern pieces, like for example tights, leggings, adding cuts there could also look very professional, and be like a design feature. So don't be afraid to do that. And also, for example, if you see on leather pants, usually there is a seam on them. And that's because, when you work with leather, you have real limitation on the size of the, not fabric, but the leather. So then you can actually...
You can't buy leather on the roll.
No, you can't really do that.
Unless it's fake.
Unless it's synthetic, of course. So then you need those cuts to be able to actually place it on the leather. So, and I think seams are really... Those are great, because then you also can add a little bit shape or remove a little bit width if you want to, and it could also help improve the fit, and you're more flexible. So don't be afraid if a garment has a lot of seams. Sometimes it's actually easier to work with then to get the right fit, compared to if the fabric is in, or the garment is in just one piece, then it's a little bit more tricky to work with, to be honest. So you can really play around, and I've seen some really beautiful sweatshirts as well, like that has like almost like a diamond patchwork that you sew pieces
so they
together.
Intersect and they create this. I really like that.
You can really go be creative here with how you add those seams.
And I think should just a note about that, because a sweatshirt fabric is relatively stable for being a knit fabric, so I would say that those are probably a bit more appropriate. I would be a little bit more hesitant if I use like a soft rayon jersey, for instance. I wouldn't do like horizontal seams, for instance, because it can be tricky even if you have a serger and use differential feed to not get that like wobbly seams, because usually it has more stretch crosswise. So if you want to add a seam, horizontal seam, you might have sometimes issues with having the seam to lie flat, I would say. So you have to, lengthwise is probably a smarter idea for some type of fabrics than others. So it has to obviously, of course, work with the right fabric. Softer knits are a little bit trickier, so that's maybe not the right project to do this. But also for example, woven trousers, if you have a rounded waistband, you can, if it's in one piece, it is usually pretty big and long then, and maybe not fitting in on the fabric. So then you can add either center back seam or side seam basically, and then you can shift the grain line as well to be straight in the front and straight in the back, and then you maybe are able to puzzle it together a little bit better on the fabric. So understanding a little bit about grain line, I think you have to be a little bit experienced here with how to do it and where you can shift and not shift, and how to do it. But otherwise, try. It could really be helpful. Yeah, such a fun way, and it adds a lot of interest to the silhouette as well, and it can change the perception of a shape of a garment as well. For instance, if you have like a front vertical seam, it can kind of like alter the silhouette of the style. So even though it's not, but just the line makes things happen. So I find that's also really interesting. And if you look at a lot of older, I guess before mass production became a thing, when tailoring was still like a big thing, if you go and look into all the like suit jackets and things like that, I mean obviously they have darts for shaping, but they have lots of seams, and I guess that was probably a way also to save fabric, especially during the rough times in the 30s and the 40s, where everything was very difficult. And so I can imagine that it was also a part of it, and I love it because it feels, to me, it feels very elaborate, I guess, up or leveled up in a way. So to me it shows that you're taking some extra attention to a product, and you haven't just made it like into a mold, and then it becomes a little bit boring. So to me, I love going and watch any type of older garments, and if you look in a fashion museum as well, you can see that there are so many seams, and as you say, I don't think they're all done for shaping. I think it's also a way to save fabric and just add that little extra interest, and we don't see that much anymore, I guess, because also labor is expensive as well. So it's but again, we don't have to deal with that as home sewists unless you're in a hurry. And funny thing, if I remember my fashion history correct now, I might be lying, but denims or jeans, in Swedish the word for a yoke is besparing, which is literally translated like saving ish. And I mean, you don't have to have a yoke on a pair of jeans. You have to have a dart, but you don't have to have a yoke. But the back piece on a trousers, I mean, it is pretty big, and it goes, the back rise, I mean, the waist goes quite far. So cutting away that piece and placing it like in between the legs on a pair of, when you have the pattern pieces lay out on a fabric, there is wasted fabric there. So 100%. Take that, take the yoke and place it in other place instead. You do save fabric on this one. So
I'm not gonna say that yes, this is why they do a yoke instead of darts, like how the jeans have been evolving. But it might be a thing, like it's a way of saving fabrics actually to do it this way instead of having a dart. So it is a little bit funny, and also the Swedish name is actually saving.
I didn't think about that because it's such a technical term, because you see it when you look in pattern books and pattern construction books, but we don't really say it like we say oak or something like that.
Yeah,
sometimes,
you can say
but we
oak
don't.
as well. Yeah,
oak as
but
well.
then
Yeah. So it's similar to yoke, but that's
yeah,
different
but it's
because
usually
that's
more
the one that you have a shirt with a
exactly on shirts. Yeah, but I think it's called besparing on trousers.
Yeah, I know it because I've seen it in all the pattern books, pattern making books. But
usually trousers they are pretty wasteful in how they are placed on the fabric, because the legs, I mean, it's huge pattern pieces, so it's
really tricky, and especially because of when you have the crotch and the inseam, especially in the back, this one part that goes out extends so much. I mean, the crotch and the inseam, and then you have, like, if you have narrow trousers, you have so much waste of fabric in between, especially if you have to cut everything in the same grain line or the same direction. That's why I guess cargo pants is a good idea, I guess, because cargo pants, aren't they usually made of lots of different panels? I guess sometimes are reinforced and things like that around the knees, but so that's probably good like fabric saving project is to sew cargo pants rather than having straight pants. I mean, adding
cuts on the back isn't as visible. So if you add just a cut below the knee on the back piece, on the back leg trousers, then you can place those pattern pieces a little bit different. So there you can save quite a lot, and it's not going to be so visible that you have added a seam even. So yeah, it's a good way of playing around, doing a little bit of having it as a puzzle challenge, like how to how to piece your fabric in the most efficient way. And this is also when, especially on I can say as PDF pattern designers, I mean, we do try to give an estimation of how much fabric you are going to use. But for example, I always place my pattern pieces in the same direction in case you have a print that needs to be in one direction. I mean, usually you can be more. We do it usually in a more general way. We don't optimize it on each specific size. Maybe we do 3 sizes at a time. To save a little bit time for us when we do these calculations. So I think usually, and we also add a little bit of extra just in case.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's my biggest nightmare. One of my biggest nightmares sewing business owner is that I followed your fabric length recommendation, and it wasn't enough for my size, and I'm like, and I think that's true for everyone. And I used to think when I was buying a lot of like old envelope patterns when they were paper and printed, I used to think, why? I was a little bit upset because I felt like they were always adding so much extra, and then I would have paid for more fabrics. But now as a business owner, I kind of get why they're doing it, and because it is so difficult to you don't want to end up that. No.
Yeah, you don't want to give too little, and a whole project
it's a balance. I do
ruined.
try to be mindful that I don't want people to end up with having like several decimeters or a feet or 2 of extra fabric. But it's a little bit tricky. So hopefully no one has complained so far. So fingers crossed that I haven't.
No, and also it can depend on. I always have. I take that the fabric width is 140 centimeters. I don't know what that is in inches. Sorry. But usually knitted fabrics are wider, especially like sweatshirt fabrics. I've noticed that they are wider, but I still want to take like the more regular width, again, in case of someone has that fabric width. But here, so usually you can be more efficient with your fabric use than what the pattern is recommended. So you can have a bit of extra fabric saved then, and do some scrap projects instead with them, or make baby clothes or something that uses smaller pattern pieces. So really have this as a puzzle challenge for yourself when you make something. You can usually make it in a smaller amount of fabric than what it said.
Yes, and it's fun. I like those kind of challenges. I love to getting the most. And also, when you've been sewing a lot, I mean, not every garment is like super crazy unique. I mean, sometimes you're just sewing another t-shirt from another pattern maker, or another pair of like straight leg pants from another pattern company. So that means, because of course you have to also calculate the fact that sometimes we have to add length, or in my case remove length from a pattern, which also of course affects the actual fabric amount needed. But I think, to me, when because I usually buy fabrics and then I figure out the project, so I know pretty much if I'm going to stick to the most typical styles, I know pretty much exactly how much fabric I will need, unless it's something crazy I will do, but usually I don't know that when I'm buying the fabric. So
yeah, and next tip is gonna be like so boring, I know, but use what you got in your fabric stash. I know that, I mean, buying new fabric is so much fun. We've all been there, but use what you got. I mean, that is gonna be free fabric for you. I mean, girl math or sewist math.
Girl math. Yeah, this is where we're trying to make you rich, basically. We get to use a lot of girl math.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously, if you find, I hear a lot like this, that like, yeah, but buy your fabric in a second-hand store, or I never find anything in the second-hand stores. I see a lot of Facebook groups that are selling fabrics. Usually they are not, to be honest, that much cheaper compared to buying in store, but I mean, obviously it depends, it varies. But yeah, if you have places where you can buy second-hand fabric, I mean, obviously go for that, or buy garments that you can upcycle and remake, or buy a shirt that maybe, or use the buttons from a shirt that you can't, that is like worn out. Well, take the buttons, and you can save there then instead. So I mean, in the second-hand shops there are a lot of great resources, so don't forget about that.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And also save those garments sometimes. Don't throw them away. For instance, I have my boyfriend's really nice pyjama pants that he has worn out, but I'm going to use it for pocket lining because it's such a soft, nice fabric.
Yeah,
so
and especially
you have more.
Pockets, and maybe the inside of a waistband, if it's I mean, you can, even if it's a straight waistband, you can cut it in half, I mean, the inside and the outside, and make the inside in another fabric, as long as they are, I mean, kind of matching in thickness, stretch, and those kind of things. But yeah, pockets, as you say, those are great using other smaller fabric, maybe not using the expensive fabric. And if you... One saving tip here might sound a little bit contradicting, but if you have expensive fabric, make samples in a cheaper fabric first, so that you see that the fit is right, you know all the sewing steps. Maybe you don't need to make those mistakes on the actual garment, but you can do it on the samples. So don't skip this step. Make samples before cutting into that expensive fabric.
That's very, very true. And that's where I would say that I have the most success using second-hand fabric, because I do find when I go into second-hand stores, and we have a ton of them where I live, I find that the materials are a little bit sus. I mean, it's a lot of like not the kind of fibers that I am mostly drawn to. I don't find any wonderful Italian wool, I would say, or some Pima cotton or whatever, but I will say I've been very successful like finding some old polyester gabardine or fabric and use that when I've sampled maybe a pair of pants, for instance. So don't sleep on the second-hand store, even though you might not find your dream fabrics there.
Yeah, no, so true. And I always buy my cheap fabric that I find on sales that are in a little bit crazy colors or prints, those I buy and have for my samples in the future. So they do come very handy. So yeah, make sure to make samples. And I mean, there are lots of resources, a lot of free patterns that you can use, and a lot of I think there is even a Facebook group that is called something like free PDF patterns, where they give tips on different patterns that you can download for free. So definitely check that out as well. Maybe you can find some new designers that you haven't seen before, and try them out and see if you like their style. So
a shameless plug for Malena's received beautiful Malva t-shirt pattern that you can get if you subscribe to her newsletter, which link is in the show notes, because Malena is not that great at marketing herself, so I have to be her hype woman here.
You have to be my marketing team.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful option, and a lot of, as you say, designers usually have some type of freebie, like you're able to sample that designer before you actually start buying some of the patterns. So that's a really good idea. I really like that as well. And you can also go, unfortunately my library has now, due to financial cuts, stopped lending Burda style, or they usually have both Otterbre and Burda style. So especially if you're living here in Europe and listening, actually a lot of libraries used to at least have, you were able to borrow those pattern magazines with the patterns included for a couple of weeks, and you were able to trace them. So that's also a great way of not having to pay anything for the pattern. Unfortunately, due to budget cuts, at least here in Sweden, it's getting more scarce, and obviously magazines are also getting much more expensive. But yeah, and also second-hand store for patterns. I will say those for pattern magazines. Again, I know this is like a European advice, because I was visiting a new second-hand store a while back, and they had so many new issues of Burda style magazine. So I was like, and they cost like, I mean, €0.50 or something like that. It was like I'm in heaven basically, because I literally love my Burda style. So that can also be good, and also both older several vintage patterns as well that has been really beautiful, and I've been super happy with them. Yeah,
I'm a little bit conflicted here. I don't know if I'm sad or if it was a good thing to do, but when I sewed back when I was teenager, early adulthood, I sewed a lot for myself, and then for a couple of years I also subscribed for Burda magazines, so I had like a huge pack of those magazines, and I think I don't think I sold them. I think I gave them away to second-hand store. I do have a couple of them left, and now a couple of years later I was like, should I have done that or not? It hurts a little bit that I don't have them anymore, but then again, when did I ever use them? Never. Since I stopped making clothes for myself as a hobby. They would just take up space.
Yeah.
So maybe it was okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit conflicting.
I know it's so difficult. I have saved so many of mine, but it's also different, because if anyone go over and see what does Johanna sew, and you will realize that about 90% of all the things I'm tagging is from Burda style, because
you sew a lot from them.
Yes, I love it, and I go back to I'm like, I need a pair of cigarette pants, and then I have basically every basic style saved, because just like with everything else, it's hard to reinvent the wheel every time. So obviously, if you have maybe 10 magazines from, say, Burda style or some other pattern magazine, you usually have all you need, because you have a good straight pants, you have a good like cigarette pants, you have a good A-line skirt, you have a nice blouse, you have a shirt, etc., etc. So that's why I just do them over and over again. But that's also because I'm a sucker for pain. I can't stand tracing, which is probably because that's probably also a big hurdle for a lot of people these days, especially with the ease of PDF patterns, that it's much faster to tape something together even if you have a printer than you have to trace like a billion lines using tissue paper. Yeah, not my not. So
Can
that's
I
also
say,
an aspect I think.
My latest off topic here now, speaking on a budget, I made a Black Friday deal. I haven't tried it yet. I have bought a mini projector.
Wow!
Yes!
We're going to stay tuned for an update on Stitching Tales on Malena's project adventure. Now we have a new episode idea, but not today. Wow!
Yeah, because right now I'm looking at the ink for my printer that I wasn't able to use because it was not matching with my printer. I bought another brand, a cheaper brand, and obviously it was like HB printers. So it's like, no, we are not going to work with those. We just want our own
Such a
printers.
snowflake.
So annoying. And the amount of money I spent on that ink is just like, I could have bought a really expensive projector even. Now I have just bought like those mini, very small, I think it costed like $50, 50 euros, 500 kroners. So if this works, I'm gonna be super thrilled. I mean, obviously, if you want a projector, if you want to play video games, TV games, watch movies, obviously you need a bit of a quality, I think. But the important thing here is just that the size is correct. So fingers crossed, it's gonna work. Because
that again, that definitely ties into this topic, sewing on a budget. Because I mean, no paper, no printing, no ink. It's gonna pay. You're gonna be rich. I mean, the girl math is mathing.
Exactly. I'm gonna save so much money now. No, and also the super annoying thing. I mean, I have a big plotter printer. It prints, on a paper roll that is 60 centimeters wide. Sorry, don't know how much that is in inches. I can't get, full trousers pattern on them. I usually have to print them in two, but then at least I don't have 11 million A4 letter size that I need to glue together. But now my printer is giving me this message like, sorry, I can't work. You need to contact the HB for help, whatever. Oh. So I'm like, okay, I'm soon gonna break up with you. You are not working with me not right now.
Yeah.
So
it's become toxic.
It's become toxic, and I just don't want to contact the help desk for. It's probably some just updates I need to do that I haven't done in a while. But yeah, it's on the I might be breaking up with it very soon if my projector is working better. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, that's so exciting! I feel because you're going to be the test rabbit for this now because. You have to go through all the pain, and then I will just pick your brain afterwards, so I can do it the same. Yeah, those print costs, it's crazy. I mean, that must be the best business ever. But I think obviously now people print much less these days because everything got digital. So I guess the working model is not working anymore. But in the heydays of the printer cartridge boom, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
So annoying. All right.
Yeah, it's a cost that you don't really think about. Yeah. So we'll see. And I have a little bit. I don't. When I tried to talk when I bought it, they were like, yeah, but you can. You can open the package and actually try it. I was like, okay, great. Usually with those things, it's like, yeah, you can return it. But you can't have open it. It was like, but how can you try it then? Yeah. But here you can actually do that. But I guess you have a little bit of a time limit. You can't return. Usually it's like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, something. So I need to. I know myself. I usually am very like, new things. I don't want to deal with it. And then 3 months later, I do it and then realize no, it's too late to return now. So I'm gonna try not to. do the same here. Fingers crossed.
Good.
Within a week or two, I will have tried it. So I'll
And
keep
you
you
should
posted.
also take photos or videos and post it over at our Instagram stories, Stitching Tales Pod, if you want to follow Malena's adventure. Is that a promise now? You should definitely document the process, because I'm pretty sure a lot of us want to see how it's going. So definitely do that as well. both in your
Yeah, I don't know
personal and
if I
over at
want
Stitching
to
Tales Pod.
document my frustration of how to.
Yeah, but those are the things we have to see. I mean, that's what we are doing here. We keep it real. I mean,
yeah, true.
it's
And
like
there is this Facebook
return to
group,
sender.
for projector sewing Facebook group, where I know that they have great information on how to calibrate it and how to do it. So fingers crossed, there is a great manual there on how to do it.
Sure.
But I'm thinking already now, how can I bribe my husband to do this for me? He doesn't know it yet, but we'll see how it goes.
That's your Christmas present for him. Your early Christmas present. Christmas comes early this year. I have a special gift for you.
Exactly. You get to help me. You're welcome.
Oh, that's so fascinating. But now we have to return to our to our original topic. So do you have any more tips on the list?
Well, those were my biggest thing. But in general also, I mean, new and exciting things, I know they are very, you want to have it all. But start small and expand your library of tools, notions, whatever, before you actually need them and know that this is, if you can try it out. If a friend has rotary cutters, for example, are you a scissors person or a rotary cutter person? Like, maybe you can try a friend's rotary cutter just to see if this is suitable for you. And also, like, what do you usually sew? Do you need these specialty things for those, or can you manage without them? Usually a pair of great scissors, could be regular scissors as well, that you have sharpened, or that is sharp from the beginning, and you don't cut any paper, then they usually stay quite sharp. So usually with these kind of bootstrapping like things, you can get by ish pretty on a good budget. But it depends on, of course, what your budget is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I guess the only thing is to invest in a good quality sewing machine. And I think pretty much the rest will sort of solve itself. And I should also recommend, if you haven't already, go you back to a couple of older episodes where we talk about sewing tools that we find valuable, and those that we also have a Q&A where we talk about sewing tools that we find overrated, so that can also be helpful if you at least if you want to get, we don't necessarily always agree, but it's also good to take some things that we have purchased and maybe didn't think was that great. So at least I have done, because I'm more of a gearhead than Malena is, so I think I had a lot to say on that topic. So I definitely bought a few things that I shouldn't have done in hindsight. So it's as you say, take your time and see if I would say, if you start to feel like a certain step is becoming like a pain point, and you start to feel almost like you don't want to do this because it's such a hassle, and you maybe don't want to sew or trace pattern or whatever, then look into some tools maybe that are generally already by other people talked about as a good way of improving the process, because that's where I think the biggest value is if something is stopping you from sewing something, that investment has proven track record to help you make things easier. That's where I think the best investment is when it comes to buying new stuff.
Such a good point. Especially also that's a little bit how I try to think in my business as well. For example, with this projector, if it works, I mean, it is gonna save me time as well, because then I don't have to print out. Even if I have a big plotter, it's still taking time to print, to cut out the paper pattern. So that is time saved if it works well with having a projector file. So it is always a little bit, if it becomes a hurdle to do something and you can buy yourself out of it, or you can buy yourself time, that is pretty valuable, of course, as well. So yeah. And also pattern books, usually, I mean, they are obviously more expensive compared to one pattern, but the amount of patterns you usually get when you buy a book is actually really good value for money. And also you get them in physical paper. I mean, usually you can't cut them out, you still need to trace them, but still you don't have to print everything out and assemble them. But yeah, books are usually a very good investment as well. You get a lot of pattern from a book.
Yeah, very good. And again, you can also usually loan it at a library. I think most libraries do have a good selection of sewing books. So again, that's also a really good idea. And you can also, which I do, sometimes I borrow the book first and then I try them out and then I end up buying it because it's so nice to have access to all the patterns. So yeah, really good tip.
Yes. And we want to hear, listeners, do you have any good budget tip that we haven't mentioned yet, or what was your best saving hack? We would love to know.
Yeah, you can talk to us over at our YouTube channel if you want to watch the video version. It's Stitching Tales Pod. And on Instagram, Stitching Tales Pod again. And you can also email us at stitchingtalespod@gmail.com if you want to share some tips that you have or insights and things around this. And I think it's a really good topic. And I love your approach to this as well, because we don't want to cut on quality, for instance. So in my case, like a bonus budget tips is to buy really good quality fabric, because that is actually the way you can save a lots of money, because since labor is, and I'm quotation mark here, is free for us home sewists. I mean, we know in a simplified way. That means that if you buy like a really nice designer Italian wool fabric cast off, you can usually find those fabric remains or dead stock, and you will be able to save so much more money compared to the finished product. So if you sew a coat, maybe using some really fine cashmere wool, it's not going to be that pricey compared to what it would cost to buy it. So you can actually like finish the garment in like 1/10 of a cost compared to what a designer would charge for that product. Whereas if you sew maybe a basic t-shirt, simpler fabric, it's the saving, so to speak, is not going to be that big. So sometimes actually investing in a fabric is a way to save money when we're talking girl math here, but you understand what I mean.
No, but you need to compare the prices to compare apple to apples. You can't compare it to fast fashion then, and those materials, polyester materials. You need to compare them to the same level of materials then, and those garments are really expensive. So yes, I totally agree with the sewist math here.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you so much for listening to us to talk about this, and again thank you, Malena, for your amazing advice. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.